Today we're going to talk about building a great team. Two of our speakers are held up in traffic, but we have Timothy Scott here to begin the proceedings. Tim is a serial entrepreneur and business professional with over 25 years of experience, mainly in the advanced manufacturing sector. He has been the former owner of multi-faceted manufacturing, the sales and engineering lead for an internationally recognized electronics company, a successful high-tech startup entrepreneur, and is the managing partner of a strategy consulting firm. But how we got Rick here is because of his affiliation with how we got Tim here is with his affiliation with Rick Center. As an entrepreneur in residence at Rick Center, Tim's role is to guide, connect, and grow the collaboration of support resources for small to medium enterprises within the Peel region. Tim has been very kind to come all the way from Waterloo, and we will hear him about his experiences on managing teams, building teams, selecting co-founders, and the lessons from the trenches. Please help me welcome Tim Scott.
I speak pretty loud, so I'm just getting, and I like to kind of wander around. So if you don't mind, I'm going to be out here, and hopefully I won't wander too far, because I know that. So anyway, welcome. Thank you for joining me. Yes, I'm Tim Scott from Waterloo, and as Lalit said, I'm the managing partner of a company called PurePoint Consulting Group out of Waterloo. We do a lot of work in the high-tech advanced manufacturing space. And I'm also an entrepreneur in residence for this organization. It's a provincially funded, not-for-profit organization called the RIC Center, Research, Innovation, Commercialization Center. And our goal is to help mentor, help support, help guide individuals like yourselves that have an idea, that they have an idea with the technology and they're not sure what to do with it. We help wrap a company around that if that's what it requires. Help get them to a point, help get you to a point where you can determine whether or not this is a technology, a product, or service that actually makes sense and you can generate revenue and create wealth for yourself. That's what we do. So, what I will ask you to check your sanity if you want to become an entrepreneur. Because quite frankly, it's not for the faint of heart. It's a difficult path to walk down, a terrible road to hoe. I don't care what particular metaphor that you want to use. Being an entrepreneur is not for the faint of heart. There are some things that we're going to talk about this evening that I believe are very critical for the success of an entrepreneur. I've been, as it says here, I've had 3 startups, not quite, I have a 4th one. As an entrepreneur in residence at the RIC Center, I actually came across the technology, a new type of technology for repurposing of plastic waste. Plastic waste that typically goes to the landfill, we can repurpose it, we turn it into products. So a very interesting technology that now I'm the CEO of this particular company. We're going great guns, but it's a difficult road to hoe. Being an entrepreneur is very, very tough. And we're going to talk about some of the things that are important that you should consider if this is a path that you choose to take. What are some of the key elements of an entrepreneur that will guide you toward the point of success? So I've had 3 startups, yep, now the new 4th one. I had 1 acquisition, I've had 2 very successful exits, but almost more importantly, I had 1 crash and burn that was terrible. I lost a lot of money, and it was just because I wasn't as bright as I thought I was, and ended up making some decisions that I shouldn't have made, and ended up losing the business and losing a lot of money. Being right in the middle of a recession didn't help the matter any. But still, I probably could have managed it had I understood how to manage it better, and had I had a better team around me. That failure probably would have been, quite possibly would have been a success. But I learned so much. It was such a rich experience that I wanted to, I kind of embraced that failure. So tons of scars, bumps, bruises, and lots of knowledge gained along the way from some very smart people. So one of the themes of what I'm going to speak to is about surrounding yourself with people that are smarter than you. Everybody in this room is probably smarter than I am. I just have the thick skin and again, being kind of crazy as an entrepreneur to then keep driving to different points of success. And building some successful businesses. But one of the most notable pieces of advice that I ever received from somebody is he looked at me, and I happened to be in a job at the time, this is before I went out on my own, and I was doing commission-oriented type of sales work. And he says, look, you gotta stop looking at the money. What you have to start doing is relying on your team, do the processes properly, and the rest will come. When I started doing that, listening to this very sage advice, all of a sudden things became very successful. So, building a great team, executing on your processes, and expecting that you will gain success is really what it's all about. So Entrepreneurship 101, and again, I will ask you, are you crazy if you want to be an entrepreneur? I think you are. I think everybody that comes into the RIC Center, that Research Innovation Commercialization Center, where I'm an entrepreneur in residence, and they come in and say, I have such a great idea, it's going to change the world, I'm going to make $100 million out of this technology opportunity. And of course, I'm sitting there because I built organizations that had done, I've never built a $100 million organization, but I know what it takes to get to 10 and 15 million. I know how hard it is, and it's unrealistic to say this is a $100 million business, and they don't understand it. So my job is, at that time, regardless of the technology, I don't care what the technology is, it doesn't make any difference to me. What I care about is making sure that I go through the process of instructing and guiding and mentoring and bringing all kinds of resources to get an individual to a point where they can make a determination as to whether or not the technology is in fact what they say it is. And it might be at some degree, 100 million, well, okay, we'll let the future decide that. But it's difficult being an entrepreneur, very, very difficult. And let me just share with you some of these facts. And if you've never read these facts before, I want them to ingrain in your mind, because if you ever want to walk down this path, you need to be aware of how truly difficult it is, but how successful you can be if you do things properly. 5% of new businesses fail in the first year. Unfortunately, that's when all the friends and family money usually gets consumed. So if you have an idea, if you have a particular technology, and you put $100,000, $200,000, $300,000, all of a sudden, 5% of these businesses have put these kind of dollars in, they fail, and all of a sudden that money is gone. 20% over the first 2 years, 30% over the fail by the end of the third year. Actually, the statistic is at about the 32nd, 33rd month, 30% of the people are out of business. And then greater than 70% of new businesses fail before they reach a 10th anniversary. So, what does this really mean? What does it mean to you? So I'm here today to talk to you about, on the first slide, how to build a team that fits. Because statistics show that failure is directly related to mismanagement. And it's not only the mismanagement of a team that's already together, but it could be even going back to the lowest common denominator, and that would be the selection of the team members and how those folks can work together in order to try to leverage their experience, leverage their know-how, leverage their education so that they can have the greatest opportunity for success. Doesn't always work that way, though. So, according to Stats Canada, failing concerns business bankruptcy back in 1997, but trust me, the stats haven't really changed. Although there is a blip. There's a blip when we went through the 2000 recession. There's a blip when we went through the 2008 recession. But we're going to kind of discount that. We're going to kind of level load it. And those stats are very accurate. But the top 3 reasons for failure was weak general management. So the overall team, and I'm not talking about one specific person, although it could be one specific person, and that's very dangerous if it is. But the leadership team itself is just not configured properly, and they don't have the wherewithal, don't have the expertise, there's too many friends and family or whatever. They don't provide a good, rich balance to the management team. That's one of the issues, and these are in no particular order. So it's not like this is the number 1 issue, number 2 issue. These are all top 3, and have different different effects in different organizations So number two, the financial mismanagement could be the number one for an organization, or leadership could be the number one or whatever. So it doesn't really matter what the order they're in. And then weak marketing capabilities, the ability to deliver. So the three things that I want you to remember are the leadership team, the processes, and the delivery. If those aren't figured out, if those aren't structured in such a way where you can leverage the skill sets from the team that you built, then you're looking for trouble. The opportunity for success is greatly limited if you're at risk at either one of these, or all three, or two of them, of these areas. So the point is, so what's your plan? I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to give you a case. Pierpoint Consulting Group, we do a lot of work with high-tech companies in and around the Waterloo area, okay? There's one organization, I'm not going to tell you who it is, so don't ask me who it is. There's one organization that has a technology that you've actually, I'll say participated on, or participated in, or seen it. You've seen it. And if you knew that this is who that company was, you would go, and they're not successful. How can they not be successful? This is truly a technology that is a game changer in the television industry. Truly a game changer. And I don't say that lightly. I know how hard it is to build a $15 million company. When somebody says, I'm going to build a $100 million company, I ask them, have you built one that's 10? Have you built one that's 5? Have you built one that's 1? It's very, very difficult. So believe me when I say this, and I'm asking you to trust me. When I say it's a game changer, it's a game changer. It's a phenomenal technology. The fellow that started the company has a technology degree, electrical engineer. Very, very, very bright fellow. Very bright fellow. But what he chose to do early on was identify friends and family, the people that he liked, to come and join to build this company. Without any regard for, does anybody know how to run a company? There are a lot of people, and I work with engineers, I've got a number of mechanical patents. I'm not an engineer, but I think like an engineer. I know how engineers typically think. And there are very few engineers that have the type of business savvy that can run a company right from day one, and running the technical side and running the business side. Very, very, very few of those in the world, men or women. The problem that he experienced was finding other people that came in that had a very strong technical bent, a very strong technical background. But nobody that he hired had ever finished a program to kind of put a nice, neat little bow on a commercialization of a product. Nobody in the organization understood how to do that. I think you would be shocked that one of the biggest consulting needs out there that we find, and we have a specific program that we ended up building one, was a lot of organizations, a lot of small and medium enterprises, which is what we're speaking to, don't have structured project development, don't have a project development structure that controls engineering and product development within their organization. It's actually shocking how few have that kind of structure. So if you can imagine, so now I've kind of drilled down, now I'm going to come back out. So if you can imagine a company with a technology that is truly revolutionary, again, I'm asking you to trust me on this, that doesn't have any technology breadth, they're all focused with electrical engineering, they're all focused on this type of communication, without any business acumen, because nobody's ever worked for an organization or been in a position where they could drive an organization toward a business conclusion. They have this revolutionary product, and you've seen it. You've seen it on TV, and they're bankrupt. And it's stunning. You know, I will say this, they pissed away $12 million over the past 2.5 years, and they're gone. And the biggest reason was The guy that had the initial technology didn't know how to drive the ball across. I'm using an analogy. Drive the ball across the end zone. Didn't know how to do it, and didn't bring anybody in that could do that for him, that could help him do that. $12 million. Yes.
But you always hear that investors won't lend money unless they see a strong management team. So is this also a shortcoming of the lenders as well?
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. And I know one of the key investors, and I will tell you this, and this is the horrible part, this is the horrible background part of all of this. This investor got this large chunk of money because his wife had passed away. He invested that in a couple of the companies. They did really well. He took this big chunk of money, he laid it over the top of this company. He actually went in and he'd run 2 companies, and he went in there as the chairman of the board, and he put, of his money, he put close to $4 million, almost $4 million of his own money. And then of course, because he's a recognized figure in the province of Ontario in the high-tech industry, other people putting their money in, now this company is gone. They tried to salvage it. They're trying to do a little bit here and there to try to resurrect it, but right now it's out of business. I know because they owe me money and they just wrote it off. So hard lesson to learn, but that's what can happen. The moral of the story is they didn't do it properly. There was a failure on the advisory team of not recognizing, hey, we better get this kind of strength in so that it can drive this organization further, so that it can round it out in such a way where they can be successful. So that's one example. So my question to you is, what's your plan? So I want to just talk about a focus toward building an organization toward success. Like I said, as an entrepreneur in residence at the Rick Center, I often will get people that come in and they have an idea. And it's great. I love hearing men and women, young and old, come in and say, I have this idea, I have this new revolutionary technology, and that's wonderful. But again, I don't care about the technology. If I tried to learn about every technology that came in through the door, and I have 70-odd, 80-odd clients, I would get buried, and I'm not that smart, so I can't figure this stuff out. But what I do know is how to build a business. I do know how to run a business. So it's about imparting that information and then trying to bring the resources in to show them what they can do in those resources that are available to them. I find it very interesting that, and this is anecdotal because it's just coming from me, but if you talk to a lot of senior entrepreneurs, you'll hear the same story. Let's say a gentleman comes in and he says, I've got this great idea, and it is in fact a great idea. I would arguably say that the number one issue is them wanting to hold on to it and them believing that they can do everything with it and not give up any of the control of their technology. You understand? So they come in and they say, I have this that I think can do X in terms of revenue, and I think it will be a game changer in this particular ecosystem or this particular marketplace, but I don't want to give anything up. What do you think my response is? You probably know me well enough just from standing up here in the beginning what my response would typically be. So, and I'm a pretty bold person. You probably get that already. So I don't have any issue with hurting your feelings or your feelings. If you come to me with an idea and you ask me my opinion, well, I'm going to tell you. And it's not based on because I want to be mean. It's based on what I know is to be fact. It's very difficult if you don't open up an opportunity to gain some kind of a leveraged partnership, whether that be a silent partner, whether that be an active partner, whether that be a mentor that is stuck to your hip, that you're going to give them some shares, you're going to give them some money, or you're going to give them lunch every Friday afternoon. You've got to expose yourself to opportunities to create a greater breadth of knowledge and experience in order to be successful. That's number one that I hear, that I see, that I'm anecdotally communicating to you, that's the biggest issue is they tend to hold on too tight. By show of hands, and I'm not going to point you out, but I'm just curious, by show of hands, How many of you believe you have an idea of a technology, or even a service, it doesn't matter, that you believe that you would like to execute on that, engage in that, sometime within the next 5 years? Just raise your hand. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So, listen carefully. I don't have all the answers. I've just been through it. I've been through the war. I certainly don't have all of the answers. But I'll bet you that if there was another entrepreneur that stood up and said the same thing relative to the same topic, they would probably be parroting pretty much the same words. So let's talk about the first line assessment. So finding the right people with a partner is probably the number one thing that I would suggest to you that's an important thing to do. Okay? One, it's great to have somebody that you can bounce an idea off of, and don't let it be a friend either. Let it be somebody that you can create kind of an arm's length relationship with, even if they become your partner, your business partner. But have a discussion, have an open discussion with somebody and let them let them talk about the whole idea. So first line assessment is a power of 2 or more is certainly a good path to take. Having exposure to or having other people's knowledge brought into the company is significant. It's a significant part of helping you develop the greatest overview that you can possibly have of trying to develop a company that may be successful. That will increase your opportunity for success, probability. Complementary skills. And I know this sounds complementary. What I mean by this is I love working with engineers. I really do. Because they tend to think sometimes. They tend to think outside of the box. If you can get them to start thinking outside the box, it's a wonderful thing. And then just say, look, don't worry about what the product is going to cost right now. That's not what's important. What's important is try to identify whether or not you've got something. And then couple that with somebody that has some type of business exposure, that's been down the road, that's been slapped in the face or kicked in the stomach a number of times, and then put those two together and let them talk about what the probability might be for that particular idea. It's a great process. You need those complementary skills. To get 2 engineers to run a company or 2 business people to run a technology company, bad move. Really bad move, as you would imagine. Does that make sense? Everybody should be nodding. Yes, it does make sense. Trust me. Next thing, trial run the relationship. I'm going to give you a personal example here. Back in 1999, when the majority of you were like weed gaffers, back in 1999, I was consulting for a big company called Automation Tooling Systems. And I was working for the owner, the guy that built this company. I'm actually going to talk about this company in a little more detail. His name is Klaus Werner. And I got so tired of, quite frankly, I got so tired of making money for him, I thought, I got to go out and I got to do something on my own. And I'd had another company before that. It was a software development, application software development. And that had done okay. But I wanted to build something. I wanted to build widgets. So I come home one night and I talk to my wife, my wonderful wife. At that time, I don't know how many years, but I mean, she was a great supporter. And she said, I think you're crazy. I think what you have now, this gig that you have now, is pretty darn good. Why on earth would you want to risk $300,000-$500,000 in doing something that you don't even know what you're doing? I had not a clue. Well, I'm that kind of a crazy person. And I thought, the best person that I could get, it's not going to be my wife because she's obviously not on side, is I'm going to find somebody that is, I'm relatively strong, but not from a business standpoint in finance. When I was doing my MBA, that was honestly one of my most favorite classes. Well, we shouldn't say it like that. One of the classes with the greatest benefit, overall in length of time benefit. So I happened to go to my neighbor across the street, who, single dad, his wife unfortunately had passed away, and I was talking to him because he was a finance guy. And I said, you know, I've got this idea. And he looks at me and he goes, yeah, you're crazy. You got a great gig, because he knew what I was doing at ATS, big company, $700 million company traveling all over the world in their jets, doing all kinds of stuff, looking at all kinds of new technology. To everybody on the outside, I had it made. I wanted to make widgets. So I talked to David, David's his name. I talked to David and I said, look, I may be crazy, but what I need is, I need somebody that can really, really, really look after the finances. And if you do this kind of stuff, I'd like to hire you to be the finance guy for this venture that I'm looking at buying. He thought about it, looked at the books. I'd like to come in and be your partner. Perfect. Now, I will tell you this, and I mean this from every fiber in my being. David and I did not get along. Did not get along while we had the company, and still, well, we're better now that I sold my half of the business in 2008. We did very, very well. I still don't get along with him, but he's still the best finance guy I've ever worked with in my entire life, and I asked him to come on with me on this new venture. He's that good, but I don't like the guy. I don't like the guy. Every other word out of his mouth is F this, F that, but he's the best finance guy I've ever seen. He's not family oriented, he's an obnoxious prick, but he's the best finance guy I've ever met. He became my partner. I told him, I said, you come and you do this, we're going to make each other rich. It's exactly what we did together. He's probably more in tune with making it happen because he's that good in finance. But a complementary doesn't mean you need to like the person, but it has to fit. It has to fit. Technology side, we were going to hire the people that can do that, which is what we did. But the two of us then created this core, and I still don't like the guy, but he's the best finance guy I ever met. So, everything that we did was also big, yes?
What is it that I didn't like in this guy? What is it? What do you do?
He's one of the most arrogant, obnoxious, rude people that I've ever had the misfortune of knowing.
So it's soft skills that are a problem.
Oh, he doesn't have any soft skills. Okay? But, yes.
Well, I'm sorry, I didn't interrupt.
No, it's okay.
Well, you may touch on this later. I was just wondering what whether or not when you formed the business with him, whether he put money into it, because one of my questions would always be,
Yes, we all did.
where does money come from?
Yeah, we did. We both did.
Okay.
We both put in, we bought the company. I'll give you some stuff because you're not going to remember it anyway. We bought the company, we put an offer in for $2 million to our 2.1. They had to back out all the debt. It was a company that was about ready to go bankrupt. They couldn't make their next payroll. We said, we'll come in and guarantee the payroll. We'll work with all of the creditors and get all that stuff on side. We both put in $400,000, and we leveraged the rest of the equipment that was there when we bought this company. That's what we did. Painful process. But David did it. He made it happen. He made it happen. I could not have made that happen. There's no way I could have made, I don't have the skill set to be able to do that. But he made it happen. And I didn't like it. But honesty, integrity, and enthusiasm, high degrees of honesty, integrity, and enthusiasm is what we built our relationship on, our business relationship on. Okay? So identifying your team weaknesses is really what I would like to kind of drive here with you and discuss with you. That there are a number of people you raised your hand, okay? And that's fantastic. Let me give you a stat that you may or may not know. Small to medium enterprises, I don't know what the top end of medium is, but I'm going to make a number up. I think it's about 50 million or something like that. Or maybe a little bit less than 50 million, maybe a little bit more. So small to medium enterprises, so companies that are in the zero revenue or $1 revenue up to that amount, make up over 97% of the businesses in Canada. And the number is not far off of that in the United States. It's like 93 or 94%, right? It's an astounding percentage of organizations of that size that are driving your employment. So I don't know who you work for, I don't care who you work for, but whoever you work for is probably in that band. It's quite likely that the majority of the people, 97% or so, are working for folks, companies that are in that band. So the likelihood of you being in that band is very likely, and you're going to be employing a lot of folks. Combined, you're going to be employing, have the potential of employing a lot of people. You can't lose that fact in the dishwater about how important it is to then try to be successful and do everything you can to build a platform, a good foundation of success. Now I'm gonna digress for a second. And I'm gonna tell you one of the things that if you were to come to me with an idea at the RIC Center that I'm at, I would sit down and I would say, and I'll say it to you exactly how I say it to everybody that does come in. I don't care what your technology is. I honestly, I really don't. I'll learn, you'll tell me about it, and you'll get all teary-eyed, and it'll be really good, and we'll have a little powwow, and we'll give you a cup of coffee, and that's all wonderful. What my goal is to make sure you don't fail. That's what my goal is. That if you have an idea, I want to talk to you about the 4 foundations, those 4 things that are going to be critical that you put in place that helps you create the best opportunity for success. You saw the statistics. Statistics are not on your side. They're not on your side. And in particular, if you don't build a team properly, and it's not just based on what I'm saying, it's based on what the world is saying, the opportunity for success is lessened. So the 4 things that I talk to people, the 4 cornerstones of a business, is a good business plan. And I mean a good business plan. Not a little 5-pager you take from a template from the Royal Bank or CIBC. That's not going to get you where you need to go. And I will tell you, for anybody that wants to know, I think if you want a business plan template that will knock your socks off, that'll be the best thing you've ever seen, I want you to get a hold of me, and I will send you this business plan template. Okay? The second thing is a product development plan. Understanding where you're going to go with your particular technology. If you've got an idea, if you come to me and you say you've got an idea for this one thing and it's going to be a $100 million thing, I will tell you you're on crack because it's not going to happen. You might be the one lucky person in all of Canada that it happens, and I can be wrong. I would gladly be wrong, but the likelihood of me being wrong is not very likely. Product development plan with multiple products, or at least understanding where you're going to go over a period of time, over a 1-year, 3-year, 5-year, and just think about it. Just try to think outside the box of where your technology may fit. You may say, well, it's to help deaf people read lips. That's fine, but where else might that be helpful? Because that's a great idea, but where else might you be able to take that technology? That's the idea. The third thing is understanding the market of where you can go, a market overview. I'm not talking marketing plan. I'm talking about being very knowledgeable of your market space. Understanding where it is you're going with your technology, what it is you can expect, who your competitors are, all those things that you would typically look at in a business plan, but I mean, let's go down, let's drill down 1,000 meters and let's see if there's gold down there. But base it on third-party support data. Some people will say, well, I've got this great idea, here it is, here's my technology development, and all of it's off the top of your head, and I say, okay. They get to the marketing, and I say, okay, where's your data to support that? Well, I just know. I've worked in this industry for 20 years. I don't care. Where's your data? Where's your data? Understand that what you think is right, yeah, okay, all right, you can think that. But go get other people to say the same thing, because it might be a little bit different, or it might be a lot better than what you think. Get third-party data. And then the last one is a financial model that makes sense. Again, an example of somebody coming in, I got $100 million technology, $100 million idea. I just look at them, and then sometimes they'll say, and here's how we're going to do it. And I say, stop. I don't want to hear about your finances. Because unless you tell me you've got a business plan that can drive everything that I can see from an objective standpoint, you're on crack. And I tell people that. What you see today is what they get down there. And I've had some people say, well, you're just stupid. I never say that. I don't say that. But I tell them in a kind way, you got to give your head a shake, right? It's about creating an understanding that's based on fact, not on fiction, not on anecdotal information. It's based on fact. And then how can we then build an opportunity for you to succeed? Yes?
By business model, you mean financial projections that are credible, like your company will be earning $5 million in the third year as opposed to $200 million? Is that what you mean by a financial model? That makes sense?
Yes. But all of the finances, so I never, ever, ever touch the financial information. I don't even look at it. And I instruct people, don't look at the financial side. Not interested in looking at the financial. Let's figure out all the other stuff first. Let's build a business plan based on good data, third-party supported data. And let's build a technology development plan that looks reasonable, that makes sense, that shows a progression of where you're going with your technology. Even to the point of, well, in the third year, we want to get to the point where we want to sell this. Okay, that's fine. It doesn't matter what you want to do. And then what does the market look like? What does that market data say? What does it say? What can you really, I don't care if you put a list of references in front of somebody, then they can go and they can find all this data themselves. From that information, you'll be able to build your financial model that will make a lot more sense than if you try to do it by, well, here's what I think we can do. The worst thing that I've seen, and I see it all the time, and I don't want you to do this, I don't want you to make the same mistake. You're going to, but you're not going to listen to me when I say this. I see too many hockey sticks out there where, so we're going to get in and we're going to make 3% market penetration in the second year, we're going to be 12% market penetration in the third, and my revenue is going to look like this. And I just say, again, what would I say to them? You're on crack. Yeah. Because it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. How does it look with regard to all of these costs that you're dumping into this financial model? What's it going to cost you to get to that point? If you're saying you're going to be a positive revenue position inside the first year, you're one of the very, it happens, there's no question. But you're going to be one of the very few. It's difficult, very, very difficult. So it's about being realistic. It's about creating a view that when you sit down with somebody that does forensic accounting, a CA, they'll look at that and they'll go, wow, it really hangs together well. It really makes sense. It's about making sense. Now, you might be 200 million inside of 10 years, and that's great. It's possible, but you got to understand what it's going to take to get there. What's it going to take? What are the costs going to be? Who are the people you're going to need? Again, it's about building the team. So, with regard to identifying your weaknesses, and here's why I'm kind of giving this little diatribe, and then we're going to come back to the weaknesses. If you don't have a strong management team, if you haven't paid very close attention to the people that are your construct and your group that's going to drive this organization forward with regard to the business side, the technology side, the quality side, and so on and so on, the financial side, and so on. If you haven't paid particular attention to that, you're going to be in trouble. I absolutely guarantee you. The second thing, the leadership. Oftentimes, leadership experience is overlooked to, I'm going to make a word up, verbosity. You know, there's all kinds of energy that comes out, and because I've got all this energy, and I've got my MBA from Queens, and my electrical engineering degree from U of W, and I've worked in the business world for 2 years, and because I've got all of that, I can be successful, and I say, you're on. Because it's about understanding what you're bringing to the table, and whether or not you have a particular skill set. You may be very, very, very good at devising circuits that can work in this particular application to make these LCDs or OLEDs perform like this, and you might have a $100 million opportunity, technology opportunity. But it's about understanding what are the weaknesses and the barriers that are going to keep you from getting there. And one of those is if you don't have enough experience, or you haven't tried to leverage experience with people on the outside through an advisory team, we're going to talk about that. You're just asking for trouble. The next one, structure. So no parameters to define success. I'm going to go into more detail about what I'm going to suggest in I think it's on the next slide. In that slide, I would really want you to take away and understand what each one of those points are. But if you don't understand where you're going, how are you ever going to get there? And I know you've heard that since you were little kids. You've heard that if you don't save your money, and you know that you have to pay for half of your camp when you're in high school, if you don't save your money, you're not going to be able to go because your parents are not going to kick in the... Well, that's about planning. It's about planning. You've heard it ever since you were like knee-high to a grasshopper. Well, the bottom line is, it's still effective in its execution and what it can do for you, as it's as important today, if not more so, in particular when you're trying to start or run a company. If you don't plan, if you don't know where you're going, I guarantee you may never get there, or you may get there, but it might take you twice as long and cost you 4 times as much or whatever. So planning and defining where you're going to go and how you're going to get there, what it's going to look like, is critically important. And then execution of that potential. So I just put two particular parameters on. If you don't have enough cash to make something happen, it doesn't mean that you can't be successful. What it just means is you've got to rejig your expectations. And if you, what was the other? Oh, if you don't have the right product. I can't tell you, I would say, this is anecdotal, but I would say, and just from my experience with my clients that I have, probably about 20 to 25, maybe even 30% of the clients that I see at the RIC Center, and even some of those that we do consulting for, will do a pivot. So they'll have, understand what a pivot is? So they'll have a particular idea and they'll say, I want, this is in the medical document control imaging marketplace. And all of a sudden they realize, wow, that's a saturated marketplace. You're not going to make any money there. But they might be able to do something on the automotive side. So they make a complete, but they're using the kernel of their technology. They're just going to use it in a different way, right? There's nothing wrong with doing that, but you've got to recognize it. I work with a fellow, and I was telling a lot earlier, I just met with him yesterday. And he's a wonderful fellow. He's a brilliant guy. And the problem is he's so technical in how he looks at things. He truly doesn't understand the business side. And he has his brother working for him, and they have 8 people in the company. So I'm going to give you some other figures, just so that you've got it. To be a successful, profitable company, and I'm not talking profitable as in terms of great dollars and cents. If you look within your organization, and you can do the math really quickly, everybody's really bragging here. If you can't figure that everybody is going to contribute, whether it's the receptionist at the front, or whether it's somebody that's doing X or somebody that's doing Y, from the CEO to the janitor to whomever, you have to figure $125,000 per person. If you're not making that in the number of people that you have, so if you have 10 people in your company, you should be making in revenue how much?
1,250,000.
1.25 million. It's a very, very simple calculation. If you're not doing that, you're not going to make money. Highly unlikely you're going to make money. Now, there are exceptions. Of course, there are exceptions. But generally speaking, if you're making widgets and gadgets and stuff like that, it's very, very difficult to make any money. He has 8 people. He makes $600,000 in revenue. So where do you think he is? He's in the red. All the time. And he says to me, I don't know what to do. I had this conversation with him a year ago. Well, Charlie, these are the things you need to start looking at. These are the things you need to start working on. Well, people aren't efficient. They just don't want to work. Well, then fire them. sorry, but they've been here for a long time, I don't care. If I were to take over the company, I would say, you got 30 days to improve your outlook in life here, or you're not gonna be here. And we need to work on the processes, because some of your equipment's not working properly. And we need to talk to your suppliers, because they're overcharging you. And we need to talk to your customers, because they're not paying you enough. And so on and so on and so on. Sometime, but I say these things, and other than firing people, I didn't say it like that, I said, maybe you should think of letting some people go. He didn't understand some of that other stuff, and it just blows me away. I mean, this guy's been in business. He's had this company, I think he said 12, 14 years. And he didn't understand it. Yet he's a gracious, he's a wonderful man. He's a wonderful guy. He'd be a great guy to work for. I'd love to work for him. I wouldn't want to rely on him in the business, but I'd work for him. He's a great guy.
But doesn't he need a CEO then? Because he's not capable of being his own CEO.
Absolutely. So that's what we're going to start working on with him.
But then where does he get the money to hire the CEO if he's losing money? That I think is always the crux of it. Like if you're in a situation where you build a team, you have a company, you're sort of close to profitability, but you're not, you need further, you need money. Does
Yes.
this mean your new CEO has to put money into the company, or?
Sometimes that's the case. Sometimes you can get an advisory group that comes in and helps you, and maybe they can do some debt leveraging for a little while until you kind of, but they're going to demand that you do things in a more structured, in a more pragmatic way, which is obviously the way you need to do business, right? So yes, absolutely. So sometimes they bring money in. Let's go in the back. Lady in the red coat.
Hi, it's Nina Gupta here. I'll be speaking after you.
Hi, Nina.
And I deal with firing people, so I'll use that as my
I love to
segue.
fire people. No, I don't. No, I don't.
One of the things that I've observed is working with close friends and family is both an opportunity, but it's also a barrier.
Yes.
You know, how do you, I mean, that can be very delicate because you're dealing with family relationships and, you know, you've got, let's say, a brother or a sister in the business who maybe was really good at the beginning, but isn't what the company needs right now. I mean, how do you deal with that?
Well, I'm going to give you two great questions. Choose your next speaker, by the way. So, or no, the last speaker.
I'm your next speaker.
Next. Okay. So, two examples. I told you about this guy, Charlie. The other person that he has working, did I say his brother works there?
Yeah.
Yeah. His brother runs production. Is that not a problem? Obviously it is. I mean, the answer is yes. I only do answers yes. Obviously that's an issue. And we actually talked about that. You and I talked specifically about that. And I said, well, I never, and it's going to sound like I'm talking out of two sides of my mouth. The reality of me, the reality of Tim, with the people, and I had 2 plants, I had 75, 80 employees, 6 managers, and all this stuff. The reality is, I try to save people. That's the reality. You look at the person last, you look at everything else before that. Did they have the right material? Did they have the right processes? Did they have the right training? Did they understand exactly what they're supposed to do? Before you get to the point where you say, do you just not get it, right? And then sometimes you just have to say, we have to part company, okay? But the fact of the matter is, in Charlie's case, his brother, he's not an operations guy. So Charlie's an engineer. So I say to Charlie, so what does Daniel know or what does he not know? Well, he's not an operations guy. Charlie's admission. Well, don't you think that's probably part of the issue? Yeah, okay, well, then let's look at how you do things. Let's look at some of your systems. Because he's built all of this equipment, do all of this testing. Nothing's documented. Doesn't have any diagrams. People sit on these machines and go, oh crap, this thing's not working. I don't know what to do. Okay, can you blame that on the person that's running the machine? No. So there are a lot of factors that one must consider. At the end of that train though, which is where I'm going, at the end of that train, if you have all the documentation, if you've done all the training, if you've given them all kinds of opportunity to succeed, the bottom line is, folks, and you're going to be in this situation if you haven't already, sometimes you have to just say goodbye. And you shake them, you do everything you can to support them, you help them try to find something else, if it makes sense, unless they're on you try to do everything you can to save people, because that's really what it's about. Even if you're an entrepreneur and you're running a business, you want to do everything you can to save as many people as you can, because you're their support, you're their employer. Yes, Nina?
One of the things you said earlier, and I wanted to follow up on it, is the fact that there's a disconnect between what you learn in academia and practical experience for being out in the wars, if you will. And how does somebody who's got a great idea, who's a young and stage entrepreneur, attract an experienced person to come and join them? Because, and you know, how do you meet the person, and how do you attract them to come to your little startup?
It can be a very difficult path to take. If you have an idea, let's say it's a software, an application idea, right? There are a ton of people out there with some great experience that could provide tremendous value if you could hook up with them somehow. Getting them on side to put money in, way more difficult. And if you don't have this magical four, these cornerstones that I talked about earlier, let's say if you were listening. What was the first one?
Business plan.
Thank you. You're reading from notes.
No, I wasn't. I was looking for it, but it wasn't
Okay.
there.
Okay, you can't answer the second one. What's the second one? What's the third one?
Marketing.
Marketing.
Overview.
Listen,
Marketing.
you
Marketing
better start
overview.
paying attention, because I'll stand up here all night and talk to you. What's the fourth one?
Financial
Financial.
model.
Financial model. If you don't have those four cornerstones figured out, and you don't have some clarity there, if you ever go and try to talk to somebody, they're going to look at you and they're going to say, come back when you have that information.
As part of your business plan, should you have all four components? Like you have your business plan, but you also have your product development.
Absolutely.
And could you just say how long, what would you expect to be the length of a good business plan, a good product development process plan?
I've seen really good business plans be in the, like really, really good business plans be in the 18 to 20 page range, excluding any type of addendum pieces, whether those be in appendices or whatever, right? Because a financial, typically a financial pro forma, that in itself would probably be 4 or 5 pages, right? So excluding that stuff, right? Ours, with our new, and I'm very anal about business plans. I think business plans are absolutely to die for. You got to do one, and you got to do it, and you got to do it well, and you got to spend a lot of time doing it. Ours is about 33 pages. Now that's not what I'm sharing with investors, and I have now 4 investors to the tune of over $1 million we have in our company. But it's because they looked at that and they go, oh, these guys are squared away. Well, yeah, I failed because I wasn't squared away before, and I lost a lot of money because I wasn't squared away before. I didn't have all of this support to kind of think through these issues. So those 4 things are key in building your business. So therefore, to get back to the question and the point, is if you haven't gone through that exercise and that process to develop that information, my suggestion to you, unless it's a friend or family, don't go talking to anybody about trying to raise any money to get them to join your company if you can't answer all the questions that they're going to want to see in a very technically driven, information-driven business plan. That make sense?
Shouldn't you also need a good marketing plan as a 5th component?
I think you should have like in the business plan template, if you ask me, again, you ask me, I'll give you my email at the Rick Center, and then I'll send it out to you, and you can have it. And it's a really, really good, and it's not, I kind of jigged around with it, but I didn't create it, right? But it's good to have that information in there, but because things tend to change from the time that you do your business plan to the time you actually start to execute, that's when you would create a very detailed plan, right? So you wouldn't necessarily want to have that rolled in your business, but you want to have an idea of, here's a go-to-market strategy. That's kind of what you would call it,
Okay.
right? So marketing, yes, but it's really more like an overview that you understand what the costs are in your go-to-market strategy, okay? So execution potential, not enough cash, you have the right
On that
product.
slide, actually, before you go off, I might forget, I'm dying to find out, the trial run of the relationship, that sounds really great, but I'd love to learn how to make that practical, particularly for those of us in the sort of tech sector, where it's quite fast-paced. How does one practically take some time or find a way of casting a relationship with a co-founder or senior partner?
It's difficult. It's important to try to get to know the other person. The interesting spin on all of this, and again, it's going to sound like I'm talking out two sides of my mouth, the interesting spin on all of this is, had I taken the time to get to know David across the street, I probably wouldn't have gone into business with him. And I will tell you to this day, with every last breath, that I wouldn't have been able to buy that company and we wouldn't have had that great success. Because, so in a way, it can kind of be detrimental. But it's really important to get to know the person. Like if you're an EE and you've got an idea on a particular product, and I'm a business guy, it would be important for us to spend a little time together to see if there are synergies between our ideas around what we want to do in the business. The biggest issue that I've seen, the number one issue, is understanding what the future looks like with a particular technology, with the company. What does that company look like? Because a business person might say, will typically say, if you've got something that's really nifty and really sexy, they might say, we're going to try to see if RIM will buy us in 5 years. But a technical person will go, why don't we sell this? This is my baby. That's probably the number one issue. So if you get to that point and can understand how those ideas of how you can build something together can fit, can cohabitate. It doesn't mean that you have to get along on everything. That's not what I'm saying, right? But what I am saying is getting to know who they are and what they bring to the table, and then coming to terms with how that might work. That's really important.
Okay, so a trial run doesn't necessarily mean you need to do a 1-month consulting project together before you start a company. It could just be a couple quick dinners and heart-to-heart conversations would be sufficient.
Could be,
Okay.
or it could be hiring somebody as a consultant for a period of time and then see how it all kind of plays out. There are a lot of companies that actually do that. So a board of directors will go out and say, okay, well we've invested X number of dollars in this company, and now you, Mr. Technical Person, we think that we really need to parachute a CEO in, not because we don't think that you're any good, but because we want to try to do the divide and conquer so that we can become more. So the board might bring a temporary person in to run as like maybe director of sales and marketing, to see whether or not they have the technical savvy and they can connect, because trust me, it all comes down to sales, right? If they can't make that happen, then why would you put them in a leadership position that really has to drive sales? That's what a CEO does. You create strategy and you drive business. You drive the sales in the business. That's what a CEO does. If you think a CEO needs to be a technical person, no. It's best person, have that person do a CTO and let them really, really focus their skills in that area and really leverage their skills, right?
Great, thank you
Makes
for all
sense?
that. Absolutely.
All right. So I'm going to give you a couple examples. Sorry, I don't know how much time I have. Dean, is it okay if I keep going for a little bit?
Yeah, Helen McDonald's not coming, so if you want, I mean, I don't know how much more time you need, but I thought that if you wanted to go for another 15 minutes, then,
Okay,
then if that works for you.
That works.
Leaving time for questions.
that works. Thank you. So, two corporations that I had direct experience with that I want to give you an idea of what stopped working for them. So Electrohome is a company that was about 100 years old down in the Kitchener area. Ended up being a very large organization. At one point they had about 3,000, 3,500 employees in about 12 different plants in and around Kitchener, Waterloo, Cambridge, Guelph area. Very, very, very successful company. I joined them a little later on, and they were doing over 200 million, and in a very short period of time, because they became so myopic. Well, these are some of the points. Poor management structure. There was one person that ended up running two big divisions in this organization, and he ended up spending more time on the golf course in the summertime and skiing in Vail and Whistler in the wintertime. but he was the guy that was calling the shots and signing all the checks, so to speak, not literally, but so to speak. And it was a real problem. So it went from 200 million to under 100 million in 6 years. Now they're out of business. They're completely out of business. Nina, you would know this story, wouldn't you? Yeah. John Pollock is a dear friend of mine. He's actually the grandson of the founder of Electrohome. He was my mentor for a number of years, and he said, I don't like you anymore, so he's not my mentor anymore. But, so limited product development, unfocused marketing, and team inconsistency and performance. I mean, they just didn't have the wherewithal to be able to drive the organization to a good positive. And as the technology and market started to evolve and change, they just fell by the wayside. And it's very, very important, very sad story. I want to cry. But ATS Automation Tooling Systems went from strong to very marginal. They were doing over 700 million. This is the guy that I worked for. I worked specifically for Klaus Warner, the guy that started this company. And the guy got cancer and ended up dying. And this is what their footprint looks like now. They were doing over 700, they're close to 800 million at the time. And now they went down, actually they dipped below 200, and now they're up around 225. I know their own shares. And that's where they are. That's what happened in about a 6.5, 7.5 year period. Just devastating, because they didn't pay attention to some of the important things. Poor succession plan. There was really no succession planning, even though this gentleman, he was a great guy. Well, either you liked him a lot or you couldn't stand him. I mean, he would, if you were talking on your phone or playing, if you were clicking your pen in a meeting, he would literally take like an eraser and throw it at you. You know, that's the kind of guy he was. So either you really liked him or you couldn't stand him. But if you worked there, he was a legendary leader, an innovator, an entrepreneur. Wonderful, wonderful mind. Much better. Very quick, yes.
Very interesting point about the succession planning. I'm assuming that's part of understanding what the business future looks like. So basically helping people realize, okay, will I be able to sell this thing? Like selling the company, let's say in 5 or 10 years, and how much money would I want to take out of it?
Yeah.
And I guess that's something that people don't think of at the beginning because they're like,
Yeah.
okay, we want to put the product out there. But
If I had a whiteboard, and I'm going to give you a diagram just using my hands. So if you were to say, if I were to ask you, which of these two things that I'm going, and they're triangles, what do you think is the most prevalent infrastructure business structure in the Canadian business industry right now? Is it like this? You understand this? Or is it like this? Is it like this? Or is it like this? Is it like this? Raise your hand if you think it's like this. This is what you typically see. Trust me, you don't understand the other one, so everybody should raise their hand. What does this mean? What does this mean?
A lot of management and fewer people below them? Is that what that means?
No. No. What this means is, can I say a naughty word?
Sure.
Shit rolls downhill, right? It really does. And you know who should be right here at the bottom? You. The leader of the company. That's where you should be. Because that's where your success is going to come from. The problem is when you're in a structure like this, that's really strong like this, and you haven't planned for if this person dies, you can really be in trouble if you don't have good succession planning or how the management team is going to function. The problem with ATS very specifically, it was like this. Actually, it was like this. It was like this, and then it got really big down here. And he ran everything. And when he got sick, he had cancer. I thought he was a wonderful man. Wonderful man. Drank like a fish and smoked like a chimney. But he was a wonderful guy. It's just a brilliant, brilliant entrepreneur. But he failed miserably in preparing people to then take over the role if anything ever happened to him. Failed miserably in that regard. Right? So it's about getting people in place. And the board failed in that regard. I might use a very strong, hey, if he's going to fire an eraser at you, you better believe that he's a pretty strong-willed guy. Whoop. So here's two other companies. Now, mind you, they're small, right? They're very small. but still, you can see the pattern of growth. One from 1 to 10 million in 6 years, another one 3 to 10 million in 5 years. But look at the difference in what it was that drove those successes. What was the difference? Strong management team was built, strong advisory team was built, pragmatic operation and so on the first, and strong management team, solid operation structure on the second one, strong product development team, customer-centric goals. Two very, very different focuses from the people that were leading the company, and both of these organizations had advisory teams that were driving ideas into the organization. Very successful.
What is pragmatic operations processes?
They took a very pragmatic approach to how they would structure their operations so that it was efficient as it possibly could be. I could have put lean in there, but lean doesn't quite capture everything. Being very succinct about how it is you're looking at your operational structure. And that can be not just how you're building the widget, but it means how you're managing quality, how you're dealing with your vendor supply, and how you're dealing with all of those people, okay? And looking at all of that to make sure that you're getting the best value out of everything you do, and it can run as lean as possible. So then the last slide that I have for you are the 5 Ps of building a high-performance team, or a team that fits, And this is a slide that if you don't listen to anything else, I want you to take this with you, because I think it'll continue to trigger for you based on some of the things I said. You must define your purpose. One of the biggest issues that I see when I go in as a consultant to other companies is maybe the management team understands what the president wants, so the general manager or the VP of the business unit, maybe they understand that. But more times than not, it's fuzzy. So if I were to take, how many of them? There are 5, and you're the president of the company, and I take these 4 out, and then separately I ask, so what is your absolute rock bottom driver for your organization? I would probably get 4 different answers. And that's a real shame. And you can't have that. If you're going to be very successful in business, everybody's got to be on the same page. Remember what I said about this? The president should be down here. Everybody else is the one that's driving the company. You're driving the strategy, but everybody else is going to drive the company. So define the purpose, and what is your value proposition? What is it that you're bringing to the table, and what is it that you're driving this company all about? The second one, identify your promise. What are you going to do? And why are you doing that? What's your promise to your people? What's your promise to your community? What's your promise to your customer? And then live and die by that. The third one, clarify everyone's performance. What's going to drive the organization? So if I take these, all the managers in a company, and I'm the president of a company, well, everybody should have a very clear idea, a very crystal clear idea of where they fit in the organization and how everybody else that's around them fits in the organization. And so should, again, I'm going to go back to this model, so should everybody that's down here. I made it a point of going up to folks, and not that I'm the be-all and end-all, but I made it a point of going up to all of my people on the floor, knowing who they were, what are you doing, and do you understand why your job is so important? Are you clear about why the quality coming off of your machine, coming out of your hands, is so important? Once people start understanding that, it makes a world of difference. So clarify everyone's performance, create a plan for success. Again, it comes back to the whole business plan thing. And I know I've been preaching this, but trust me, if you ever get to know me, or you ever want to get to know me anymore, I will continue to preach it. It's critically, critically important that you have some clarity. What's the detailed path towards success? And then lastly, how are you going to track and manage your progress? If you don't know where you're going, and you don't have milestones along the way that you can achieve a particular function, or a sales number, or a quality number, on-time delivery, or a technology development that you're hitting a particular, if you don't understand that, you're not going to be as successful as you possibly could be. So if you take all of this right here, and you think of it in terms of a team, of you building a team with your new technology, these are the 5 critical things, in my opinion, that you need to look after, that you need to make sure that people understand, and everybody's on the same page, and it's clear. It's clear, clear, clear. Any questions on any of these?
I've been mulling over your comment about your finance person that, you had friction with, but you.
Oh, it's more than friction.
I-
Yes.
Is he in the room today?
No, but he's gonna watch all of this and it's taped for posterity, right? And,
I should send it to him.
how do you deal with conflict? You know that these are, it's a good team, finance guy knows finance, the operations guy is really good at operations, your marketing guy is terrific. And yet there seems to be a lot of stress and conflict, and the team really isn't pulling together. They might be able to verbalize everything you want them to verbalize, but it's still really a hellish experience.
Yes.
What do you do to clear the air? I think that happens more often than people like to admit.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to answer it a little bit differently, but I'm going to get exactly to that point, and you'll understand why I'm answering it a little differently. I have found in either the companies that I've owned, the companies that I've worked for, the consulting that I've done, when there's conflict that hasn't been resolved in a management team, it's typically because folks aren't listening to each other. And what I mean by that is, and I was explaining it to, we've got an MBA co-op student that is from MAC, and I was explaining exactly this thing to him from a different perspective, but it still has the same meaning. Sometimes people need a win. They need a win. Sometimes a finance person needs a win. And their idea of how to get that win, I hope I make this clear, their idea of the path that it takes to get that win is not what the president would say. The president would go about it in a different way to try to get that win. But typically in a band of success level A, success level B, any dot that happens inside of here, you follow me so far? Any dot in there will create success. And what I found, based on the experience in my organizations and companies I work with and consulting I've done, is there are too many people that believe that their idea always has to be the right one. And the presidents are mostly the ones that are at fault. The problem with that is, you're not acting like this. You're acting like this. And that will create more tension, more hostility, more turnover in an organization than anything if they don't feel like they can get a win and create a result for their company that's positive. I will venture to say that of the people that you know in your organization, there's always exceptions. You understand that. There's always exceptions. But it's likely that everybody in the organization that you work with, everybody that's in the work team that you're working on, everybody that's on the floor that you're working on, everybody wants to do a good job. Granted, what you need to understand is people have different levels of success and what it means to them. But it doesn't mean that they're wrong. If this is the band that you play in and yours is up here and that person's right here, and this ends up being a law of diminishing return anyway, you got to help people win. It's about helping people win. Does that make sense? Okay.
Do you? Sorry, just to actually talk along the same point. Do you when you say win? Do you mean recognize people on what they're doing, or
Letting them have a success, creating a success that even if the success could be a little bit different, and let's just put a dollar sign to it, making $100 instead of $95, but the $95 is a win for somebody, and it creates a better balanced environment within the team, then I would go for the $95 win instead of the $100 win. Does that make sense?
right?
Okay. And I found that to be the case in a lot of organizations. Presidents, general managers, VP business units, they get all pissy about having to have their way all the time because they're the ones that have been in the business for the longest. And you just sit there and you go, are you on crack? Like, goodness sakes, this is about, do you really truly believe that your management team wants to blow you out of the water and not be successful? Like, give your head a shake. Come on. So, it's about understanding those dynamics, and that's what I found, Nima, is if you can finally get to the person that says, look, manage from here, let your people really do it because you hired them for a very good reason. I know that band of folks that I had on the floor were $12, $13, $14 an hour. That's not what we have in the room. But that's where those people wanted to work. That was their, and if they had an opportunity to create a win for them or for their group or for their particular team, let it happen. If it's a $95 win instead of a $100 win, at the end of the day, is it really going to make any difference? You give somebody a $95 win, you get that analogy? What do you think it's going to do to how they feel about their performance and about their contribution? It makes trust me, it makes a world of difference. A world of difference. So dealing with conflict, I often find that that's typically what's happening, is people aren't getting wins. And then in order to resolve that, it's about getting the very senior management to then, instead of thinking like this, start thinking like this. And then they back down and say, your job is to make everybody on your team successful. That's your job. That's your job. Typically, it'll change. That's what I've seen.
Tim, continuing on that particular aspect, would bringing to the table the purpose and the promise and discussing that, would that not reduce the time for conflict?
Yes, absolutely. And what's important is when you're going through this, it's important to have your senior management team or all the people that are building, whether it's 2 or more people, that everybody understands everybody's on the same page. You got to have everybody on the same page, and everybody needs to feel as if they're a contributor. If I were to hire somebody, and I'm actually looking at I have a controller, but the controller is kind of afraid about how fast our company's growing. And I was so proud of him, and I'm not saying that in a condescending way. I was very, very proud of him that he felt that he had the ability to come up to me and say, I don't think I can do this. I can't do this. I can't do all the banking stuff that you're looking for. I can't do all the financial stuff. I can't do all the reporting. All the stuff that you want me to do, I can't do it. Now, he's got the skill set to be able to do it, but he just doesn't have it in him. He doesn't want to do it. And I hugged the guy and I said, it's not a problem. We'll find, we're going to transition. You're still going to be doing some stuff, right? But if he didn't understand where we were going, he wouldn't have known how to articulate the problem that was going on, the churning that was inside of him. And it was great. It was great. It was a great opportunity. Great opportunity to have that kind of a talk. But he understood. He knew what was going on. You had a question way back there in the back.
Yeah, I did. I agree with this aspect that you were mentioning. Especially if the person in charge of the company needs to really motivate their people around them, making them feel that they're contributing is really important. But I also feel that some things in business are rather more black and white. I mean, this is more of a personal opinion, but you can comment on it. But I think that sometimes some opinions are just incorrect, and can be incorrect over and over. Right?
Sorry, speak up.
So let's just say you have 5 people, or just 5 people around the table there,
Yeah.
and you have 4 of them, and then one of them is just giving incorrect statements, information. They're just not as good ideas. They're just not. You can't make them just feel like they're getting a win just because it's not to hurt their feelings if they're going to affect business.
True.
So what I want you to answer is like, what do you do about that situation? And especially for a startup, right? You have where decisions are much more vital, which actually really can pertain to that your startup crashing.
Yeah.
Or really on a personal level, wouldn't want to entertain the person literally.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just because of the.
Yeah, that's a very good comment. Did everyone?
Maybe you could
hear
repeat
what I
it.
said?
Maybe you could repeat it.
Yeah, sure. So I'm going to paraphrase it, right? But the comment was, so what if you have a bunch of people that are in this startup, and one person, I'm going to say it a little bit differently, but just trust me that I'm going to get to it. One person would like to feel like they're going to get a win, but they really are not contributing in this way, and perhaps you need to address that. In startups in particular, is that okay if I said it like that? Okay. In startups in particular, what I advise, and I strongly advise this, it's really important to have your working team, and it's really important to have an advisory team. somebody that's on the outside, that they can come in and they can say, you're being stupid. Oh, I shouldn't have said that. If my grandson heard me say that, he would be giving me half right now. Anyway, you're being silly. I mean, that's what I would say in friendly. It's good to be able to have people that can come in, that can come in and can contribute that way. I don't know what the numbers are, but what my gut tells me, and this is just from like looking at things, this has not been my experience, but I think there's a lot of shifting that's going on with a lot of startups, a lot of young startups. There's a lot of people that are coming in and a lot of people that are going out. There's one guy that I mentor at the Rick Center who has a great idea. It's called Connect to Fans. So go on their website, connecttofans.com. And what they do is they're an ICT company, all right? So it's a software, it's a cloud-based software that artists can come on and they can sell their tickets. And actually, the last time Bruce Springsteen was here at the Rogers Center, they did a chunk of their tickets through Connect to Fans. Very, very cool company. But he had a problem, he and his partner is the tech guy's side, who wanted to go this particular way, and this guy's been really the guy that's put a lot of money in it. He wanted to go this particular way, and they had a real problem. And they actually had to get a mediator coming in from the outside, from their advisory team, that helped them work through stuff. They got the technical issues resolved, but the tech guy bailed. He left, and another guy has come in. But that's how they used an advisory team to deal with something that was a real situation that absolutely needed to be addressed. This guy his name is Jason, did a little bit of a pivot, and he's gone forward, and now he's off and going again, right? So, great question. It does happen. Anything I say is with exceptions. There are going to be different situations. People we're all weird to begin with, and we have the dynamics of change, and we do things differently. I will look at things differently than Al here, and it's just because that's nature of the beast. It's how you learn to deal with those things. Another thing that I really try to work with my plant manager and all my production supervisors and all those guys is listen to what people says, even if they're hollering in your face. Tell them, look, don't holler. Take the emotion out of it and listen to what they're saying. Listen to what they're saying and then try to address that. Okay? So then my last slide is remember these fundamental truths, that team is key, advisory, how did it make any sense? Advisors.
I think you meant to say advisory team.
Yeah, I did. An advisory team, or your advisors are very, they can be very influential in a positive way, and they're very, very important. Plan to be perfect. Focus is essential. Processes define proper performance and execution. Knowledge trumps vigor. I don't care if you have a friend that's been your friend since high school who's a magical software programmer. If you're a great software programmer and you want to build a business, you've got to get a business person in there. Okay? Knowledge trumps vigor, and a small piece of a bigger pie is worth more than a big piece of no pie. And this is what this is a little motto. I made this up, pretty crafty, huh? Inventor's creed, or it should be. I think it should be. So if you feel like you have something truly of value, then please, by all means, look on how you're going to become successful. Don't try to hoard it all yourself. And I got one last example, and I'll leave you with it. There's a guy that came to me with a technology out of Guelph. He'd been in this particular industry for about 15 years. Very, very, very bright engineer, mechanical engineer, who had this product that truly has a potential for a global impact. I'm a pretty astute business guy. I think I'm pretty bright. So I go into him and I say, you know what? I'd like to buy into your company. But you know what? I don't care about ownership control. I don't care. Been there, done that, got the t-shirt. It doesn't really buy anything. Trust me, it doesn't really buy anything. I said, I will give you X number of dollars. And it was a lot of money. I'll give you X number of dollars for 40% of the company. And I said, because I truly believe, because I understand the technology from the previous life, I said, I truly believe that this can, and I'm not one to throw these kind of numbers around, I think you get this. I think this can be a $5 million company inside of 2 years. He turned me down. I didn't let him know, but I was so bothered by it. I was hurt. I was crying. I was crying inside. So here he is now, almost 2 years later, and he's done 100,000 in revenue. And he's not sure where the next purchase order is going to come from. Sometimes you got to suck it up, buttercup. And you got to go with somebody. I didn't even care about having control and ownership. I didn't care. But I do the manufacturing for you. We do the sales and marketing together. You do the engineering. You just focus on the stuff that you know. Try to partner with somebody that can help bring that kind of knowledge, that expertise, that experience. If you have a good technology idea, talk to somebody and bite your tongue and take a smaller piece of the bigger pie. You can still retain ownership and you might be successful. And if you don't do it, you might still be successful. It might take you a lot longer. Okay? So, that's all I've got. Questions?
There's one question. Oh, there's
Yes.
lots of questions.
Okay, you keep talking about partner with these things, these people who are expertise and all these qualities, but not vigor. I mean, vigor is important, but not these other things. So my question is kind of twofold. One, how do you get that expertise if you're already an entrepreneur or your jobs or whatever it is hasn't led you? Because a lot of times I feel that's how people become an entrepreneur because they don't get it in the workforce. So that's my first part. But the second part is, if you don't have that experience yourself, like you said, that the person needs to have the management skills and things like that, how do you attract the people who do have it when all you have is the vigor and the willpower?
Yeah. Good question. So I answer the first one is, you go to meetings like this and you let morons like me talk to you, and then you come and you grab me after and you say, I've got an idea. How can I talk? Can I take you for a cup of coffee? Can we talk about this?
Okay.
That's one thing. There are all kinds of groups like this, and there are all kinds of, trust me, there's all kinds of morons like me that are out there that would love nothing more than to be able to sit down with you and listen to your idea, and we won't be judgmental. We have no need to be judgmental, but then try to help you get to the next level. There are tons of women and men out there that have been uber successful with some failures that would be glad to sit down and chat with you and work with you and mentor you. There are groups like the Rick Center that we do this for a living. The province pays me. It doesn't cost you a penny to come in and participate. Okay? So then the second thing is find somebody that you can almost literally attach yourself at the hip, because you want to learn, and it's important when you have an advisory team, when you're identifying an advisory team, you tell them, and they're going to want to know. So, what's your name?
Sarah.
Sarah. Sarah's my daughter. They say, so Sarah, how much do you really want to know? And they're looking for the vigor. That's what they're looking for. And if you say, I want to know everything there is to know about this business, but I'm willing to do it a step at a time, and then the more that I gain that knowledge, the more I'm going to be able to go, okay, you guys can back up a little bit further, back up a little, and they will gladly do that. They will gladly dump more information than you're capable of handling just to get you up to speed as fast as they possibly can. There's all kinds of people out there willing to do that.
Can I ask a third question actually?
Yeah.
quickly? Just what you just said. So I've attended some other workshops and things like that, and one of them, it was their whole thing was they're behind the business, their behind the scene business is to do coaching. So you have to pay them and a lot of money,
Yeah.
so for
Yeah,
example, they looked at your finances and they asked me for 15,000, whereas I'm
Yeah.
making 30,000 a year, right? So
Yeah.
that's a huge
I'll do it for
investment.
fun.
Yeah.
No, I'll do it for free.
So that's my question. Is
Yeah.
it things like that worth it, or should I just look for someone who wants to give me
Oh, I don't
information
think it's
for
worth
free?
it at all.
Okay.
I don't, one, a startup company can't afford my fees as a consulting,
Yes.
with PeerPoint Consult. You wouldn't want to hire me, but you know what? If you give me a call and say, I'll take you to lunch, or I'll give you a coffee, I just need to talk through some stuff, I'll be there. And so will a lot of other men and women that have gone through the ranks like I have, that have gotten lots of bumps and bruises and scrapes and stitches are willing to do that, absolutely willing to do that.
There was one question somewhere else, and then I think we'll wrap up.
Okay.
Well, I just wanted to ask what incentives do you give to your advisory team? And I guess what would be the ideal size of it? Like, should you be giving them shares? Should you be,
Yeah.
Maybe what I'll do, because I'm gonna do
That's
some legal stuff,
Yeah.
and there is no one right answer for
Okay.
every business, but we can talk about some of the potential ways that you can incentivize an advisory board, and of course, it depends on your kind of business. I don't know if that's helpful.
that's fine.
And
I
then-
don't pay our advisors anything.
Good.
They don't get a part of the business, but
That makes sense. If you're starting out, yeah.
well, I cry. It works.
Good.
And then in the terms of, the other question is what size? I'm not sure that there is any particular answer, but, you know.
I have 4.
Okay, that's fine.
I have 4. It is comprised of our lawyer, who's a very good business guy to begin with, our accountant, and a global marketing person and a really good technical person. And those people that I ask them questions at least, not all of them, but some of them once a week, once every 2 weeks. And I know it all. You can tell. I know everything, right? But I still ask them. Thank you very much for your time. I'm going to be around. If you want to chat, if you want that business plan template, you got to come and see me, and I'll give you. Well, let me just give it to you. Tim, Tim. Scott, SCOTT, at tim.scott at RICCenter, RICCENTRE.com, RICCenter.com, timscott at RICCenter.com. Sorry, one last thing. On your table, you would have seen this right here. This is called the Venture Start program that we have as a part of, we administer this. It's a provincial funding thing that if you have a degree in science, technology, engineering, or mathematics, and you have an idea, and you can go through this program, and there's matching funds up to $30,000. And I lead all of Ontario with 11 companies that have now gone through and been accepted in this. So I'm the king of pushing people through this to make it happen. This is a great opportunity. 30,000 is free money. You match, you put 30,000, they match. Okay? So take that. Any questions?
All right, so we're gonna break for supper.